भुवस्वः ॐ तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ भूर्भुवस्वः ॐ तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतंगमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः.
Thank you, Krishnaphani ji. Thank you so much.
Shall we start?
Yes.
Okay, let me share the screen. Yeah, are you able to see the screen? Right?
Yeah, we can see the screen, sir.
Okay, thank you. Now we are going to take up the 10th verse of Atmabodha, which says, Yathakasho Hrushikeshaha Nanopadhigato Vibhuhu Tadbhedat Bhinnavad Bhati Tannashe Kevalo Bhavayet. The all-pervading Akasha appears to be diverse on account of its association with various conditionings, upadhis, which are different from each other. Space becomes one on the destruction of these limiting adjuncts. So also the omnipresent truth appears to be diverse on account of its association with the various upadhis and becomes one on the destruction of these upadhis. Upadhi means an instrument, a conditioning, as it is called here. It's also called as a limiting adjunct. Limiting adjunct means something which has come into being and which is limited by nature. For example, the body is an upadhi. The various koshas, the various bodies are upadhis. So they are limiting adjuncts, they are conditionings, and they are instruments for various actions. Now, continuing with this idea of using similes, using examples, this particular shloka also uses this example of akasha. Yathakashaha Hrishikeshaha Nanopadhigato Vibhuhu. Hrishikesha is a name used for Vishnu. Hrishikesha etymologically means that one who has mastered his senses, whose senses are completely under control or completely under his mastery. So that is one of the names given to Vishnu, and he is also called as Vibhu. Vibhu means all pervading, which is there everywhere. So essentially, Vishnu, like the Akasha, when associated with various upadhis, appears to be diverse, like the Akasha. We cannot distinguish absolute space unless there is an object in space, isn't it? So object in space helps us to visualize what exactly space is in one way. So there is this element of relative understanding on account of our mental consciousness. If there are two objects in space, you can take any object, you can take even the planets as objects. So two objects located in space give us a perspective about space. One is at one point in space, the other is at another point, and there is an intervening emptiness. That emptiness is what we call a space. So space appears to be divided in some ways. And we can use another example, typical example of Vedanta, of a pot or a jar. If you have a pot, there is emptiness inside and emptiness outside. The emptiness inside is also space, the emptiness outside it also is space. But the emptiness within the pot appears to be confined space or limited space, which is on account of the upadhi, which is on account of what we are calling it as the instrument or the limiting agent. So space appears to be divided and diverse, and as though there are many dimensions to it, or many spaces are created on account of the limiting agents. Similarly, also, the all-pervading, omnipresent truth, which is given by the name Hrishikesha here, he appears to be diverse and dwelling in different individuals on account of its association with the various instruments, with the various bodies, with the various objects. Once these upadhis are destroyed, that means the upadhis are not there, then what is there? There is only one omnipresent truth. It is Kevalaha then. Tad bhedat bhinnavad bhavati. On account of this division or diversity, it appears to be different or separate. Bhinnavat. Vat means as though it is. It is not actually bhinna. It is not actually different. It appears to be different on account of this diversity. When this diversity is not there, it is kevalaha. It is one and nothing else. So this is the idea that is presented here. This akasha, as I mentioned earlier also, is a tattva which is essentially there, identified right from the Vedas and given extreme importance in Sanatana Dharma. The point to be recognized here is Akasha is a tattva which defies all explanation and understanding. That is the reason several other cultures which have come much later have simply ignored the Akasha tattva and recognized only air, fire, water and earth. Because they could not understand Akasha. But it is only in the Sanatana Dharma where it is very clearly brought out that the Akasha is the fundamental tattva. From Akasha, air comes. From air, fire. From fire, water. From water, the earth. So all these elements or the Panchamahabhutas originate from Akasha, and Akasha is a tattva, as I said, which defies all explanations and all understanding. Because everything is in Akasha, but nothing touches Akasha. That is the beauty of it. Every object appears to be in space. But can anybody say that that object touches space? It cannot. So that is the beauty of this Akasha Tattva. And therefore, this is compared to that omnipresent truth, and it is also compared to that ultimate reality in one way. In manifestation, the Akasha is the Tattva which truly reflects the ultimate reality. And that is the first Tattva to come into being. We are not only talking about the physical space which we see. There is a dimension beyond the physical also of this space. Therefore, there is this reference to this Tanmatra also. And the Tanmatra associated with Akasha is Shabda. And the word is the origin. The Nada becomes a Shabda. Nada in the unmanifest becomes a Shabda in the manifest. That is the Tattva of Akasha. And this Akasha appears to be varied and diversified on account of the upadhis that are there. When you gaze into the sky during the night, you find millions of stars, which are, some of them are millions of light years away from the earth. And they appear to be scattered all over the space. So you can imagine the vastness of the space. In a way, though it is a part of the manifestation, it truly represents what is infinite. Science also recognizes that the universe is ever expanding. In fact, some of them call it as multiverse, not a universe, but a multiverse. There are universes and universes, they say. Like so many solar systems, like our own solar system, and there could be several different forms of life in different solar systems and in different parts of the universe, which is all encompassed by this space. So you can understand in a truly significant way, one can understand the vastness and infinitude of the space. So that is why the space is used as a beautiful simile, as a beautiful example to depict the vastness and the omnipresence of that ultimate reality. The ultimate reality in manifestation appears as the living principle in all living creatures. Each living creature appears to be different, appears to be separate, appears to be diverse, and also it is limiting. It has a very limited expression through that upadhi or through that instrument. So what is infinite, what is omnipresent, what is all pervading, including the life principle, when it is embodied in a living being, it appears as a limiting agent. So the body appears to be a limiting factor for us also. But when this limiting adjunct is destroyed or removed, what remains is that ultimate reality or that omnipresence, which is like the Akasha. This is the Tattva. This is what we need to very carefully understand. Because otherwise what happens is it may appear to be somewhat nebulous. we have to very clearly understand from an intuitive perspective. Do not try to rationalize it or analyze it, going on trying to analyze it or rationalize it or reason it out and understand it. Because that way of understanding also is a limiting factor. If we sit in an open space, say on our rooftop or somewhere which is calm and quiet, and close our eyes and feel the immensity of that space, it gives you a different dimension of experience. It's an experience which is in a totally different dimension. It does not necessarily, see, if you are trying to look at it only from the mental perspective, you may feel that a man is very insignificant or a human being is a very insignificant being in this vastness. But
what is intuitive understanding? Is it contemplation only?
Yeah, contemplation is one aspect of a deep connecting to it. Like, for example, you actually feel it. You may not be able to express it in terms of words, but you actually feel it. That happens quite. See, if we are reasonably sensitive, also it happens to us. For example, if you are listening to some very good music, do you try to rationalize it and try to understand what is that raga, what is the melakarta of that raga, or to which division it belongs, and what are the notes in it, and how it is being expanded, and how the singer is trying to give an exposition of that particular raga? We don't do all these things, isn't it? We simply enjoy it. We simply connect to it. No, the establishment of that connection is intuitive appreciation or intuitive understanding. Without that connector, any amount of thinking, analyzing, rationalizing, or verbalizing is not going to be of any use. So that is how we connect to it. So that is why that's how we intuitively appreciate it. That intuitive appreciation is on account of that connection. In one way, as you said, Janaki Ramji, it is say contemplating. I would not like to use the word meditating because meditation is a much deeper aspect to it, where I would go by what Jiddu Krishnamurti used to always say. Meditation is when the meditator is not. Meditation is when the meditator is not. That is meditation. But when we are contemplating, in contemplation, the person contemplating is present, but his overactive thinking or the mental activity is mostly dormant or in a subdued state. So that contemplation also gives us this connect to it. That is the reason why I gave this example of say sitting quietly on one's own rooftop, maybe in a very calm and serene atmosphere late in the night, and feel that immensity of that dimension of space. The visualization of that dimension of space. So that gives us an insight into what exactly we are trying to say. So that way what happens is you are establishing an invisible connection. That is the reason why this Akasha becomes very important. So Janaki Ramji had earlier raised a point which he had sent me as a message. I will also just discuss that. what he was mentioning is about the earlier discussion we had in the previous session about name and form and interacting with names and forms, and all of them overlaid with upadhis, karma, vasanas and gunas. But the substratum of all of them is one, the Atman. That was what he wanted to understand. Now, in response to that, I have mentioned that what we call as the lower mind or the concrete mind can only recognize things which have names and forms, or one of the two. And it cannot go beyond that, or it cannot completely remove the name and form. But one has to go beyond this and see what we called last time as the Asti, Bhati and Priyam. The Asti, Bhati and Priyam refer to experience, illumination and bliss, and a sense of attraction and happiness. These three aspects are reflections of Sat, Chit and Ananda. You see the beautiful connection. You see the beautiful connection between the manifest and the unmanifest, between the elements that come into existence essentially through what constitutes as the fundamental aspects of that Brahman. The Brahman actually is ultimate reality and something transcendent. But when it comes and things come into manifestation, when the whole creation comes into manifestation, a dimension of that ultimate reality is present in everything that is manifested, and that dimension operates in these three forms of Sat, Chit and Ananda. Now Sat, Chit and Ananda form one dimension of that Brahman in manifestation through an invisible connect between the ultimate reality and the manifested reality. But this Satchidananda cannot get further concretized. The further concretization can happen only through a reflection. And the reflection of Sat is Asti, the reflection of Chit is Bhati, and the reflection of Ananda is Priyam. So you see, if something is vibrating at a very high frequency, you cannot capture that high frequency down below. You have to step down that frequency, you have to bring it down to a level where it is possible to manifest itself in a concrete or a grosser form. That stepping down of those three principles, which are only one dimension of that ultimate reality, Sat, Chit and Ananda, when they are stepped down, they form the background for all existence, for all manifestation at a grosser level as Asti, Bhati and Priyam. Last time I think we had a long discussion, we had a very elaborate discussion about the name and form only being relatively important. We are not simply enamored by the name and form. Unless that name or a form establishes a connection with existence, something should be there. Something we should be able to be conscious of. And then it should also have this element of connecting the two. Me and that aspect of it, that aspect of manifestation. That is what is consciousness all about. And that also is not sufficient in the sense that it has to give me, create in me some kind of an attraction. It should give me some kind of pleasure in order to connect to it. If you see in relationship, if we examine a relationship very closely, we find that these three elements are at the background of it, and therefore we desire, we perform action, we continue to be associated with that, we continue to have that relationship. If we are not having those three elements, we get disconnected. That connection is something which can be discovered in everything. Suppose I have absolutely no connection with something in some other place totally alien to me, and I have no experience of it. No, I do not know or feel that element of existence, consciousness, and happiness. I am disconnected with it. But the whole of the spiritual dimension is being connected to everything in manifestation. When you are connected to everything in manifestation, the name and forms are of no importance now. And through that connection, you establish a relationship with that ultimate reality in manifestation itself, which appears, which comes into being as Sat, Chit and Ananda. So this is the beauty of it, which we have to recognize. Unless we recognize this beauty, name and form have no element of any attraction to us. So that is what is to be understood. Okay. So that is what I wanted to bring to your understanding. Janaki Ramji, is it okay?
It is
Krishnaphani ji.
perfect. It is clearer now.
Yes, sir.
It's much clearer now, I say.
Okay. Okay.
Krishnaphani ji, so this
Yeah.
aspect of Priyam that we talk about, that is really our desire or our non-desire for something, right?
It's an attraction.
It's the attraction or non-attraction of a thing.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Asti is the existence of that thing, the name
Yeah.
and form of it. And then the Bhati would be the connect that we have with that particular, we cognize it and we, the connection with that particular name and form, whether we like it or we don't like it, right?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Now, yeah. See, when you don't like it, you get disconnected with it.
Yes, yes.
So all the three aspects are required. See, that is the reason why Krishnamurti used to always emphasize that without any distinction, without any discrimination, can you look at what is beauty and what is ugly, what is beautiful and what is ugly also? Because if you find what is ugly as unattractive, you are getting disconnected with a part of manifestation, isn't it? What is ugly is also part of the manifestation. Ugly according to you. But look at it from a cosmic point of view. Cosmic point of view, it's only a limitation. It is only a very partial expression, and that too an unattractive partial expression of that reality. So that is what it is. So being connected to everything, don't judge, don't condemn, don't justify, don't accept, don't reject. This is what Jiddu Krishnamurti used to repeatedly say. When you are observing, observation happens when the observer is not there, because the observer is the editor. He is the one who is editing things according to his convenience. I like this, I don't like this, I want this, I don't want this, this is important to me, this is not important to me. And that element of desire, that element of a motive, that element of some kind of a fulfillment, seeking something out of it, all this come because of the observer. As in our traditional parlance, they have called this as the various upadhis or limiting adjuncts, and that's how we are related to your karma, vasana, samskara, and all those factors. And Sarangiji has also made a relevant point that with these things, we are actually polluting the self. We are further limiting it. We are further bringing it into a limitation, and therefore we are unable to be anywhere near to the understanding of that or realization of that omnipresence, that Atman, which is no different from the Brahman. That's what it is basically. So you are stuck here. That you are stuck because of these limiting adjuncts. And once these limiting adjuncts are removed, you have only one thing, the Kevala. Nothing else. Nothing else is there. Okay. So this is what is to be understood as the operating principle, the Akasha and the all-pervading omnipresence are, as an example of that Akasha, are shown to be the same, in the sense that when these limiting adjuncts are not there, you only have that vastness, that absolute being, which is beyond all conception. One cannot conceive absolute Akasha. One cannot conceive mentally the omnipresence of reality or that truth. What is preventing us from doing is this limiting adjunct. So this limiting adjunct has to be addressed. We have to address this issue of this limiting adjunct. What is it that is causing this limitation? Is it not our own thought? Is it not our own limited experience? Is it not our own limited knowledge? And is it not our own limited memory, which is nothing but the past? And we continue to live in the past and unable to live in the moment and appreciate the fragrance, the newness, the perfume of it, of that perception of unity. That is what matters. That is where mentioned about the intuitive appreciation through a connect to it. It is not, see, it is not something alien to us. We are definitely connected to that in different forms. But we don't allow that to be sustaining in us. We are so much engrossed in so many things, and there are self-contradictory elements in us, desires in us, and inwardly we are pulled in a million directions. And therefore we are in a state of confusion, conflict, and thereby we are in sorrow. We are in delusion. The same terms come again, shoka and moha. Delusion and sorrow. Shoka is sorrow, moha is delusion. We are stuck there because we don't allow it. See, are we not essentially happy? A moment, you can feel that connect. That connect is what gives you that happiness. That sense of vastness, that sense of oneness. It's not something that we practice or desire or ardently pursue. When we are in a quiet state of mind, when we allow our senses to be alert, when we allow that silence to descend in us, then you establish that connect. That is what is important. So this whole issue of Akasha and Rishikesha, that is the reason why the term Rishikesha is used here. All your senses should be mastered. When all the senses are alert but not attached to things, then you can have a sense of that immensity. That's what is the understanding that should descend upon us. And therefore, again and again, I say that the Atmabodha, this text has to be read with an intuitive appreciation of it. Now, how do I get to this? Don't bother. Let us not bother about how do I become self-realized? Where is moksha? How is nirvana? How do I attain that? Where is the question of attaining? You are already that. You are already that. Only thing is, you and I have covered ourselves with so many layers and layers and layers of things that we are unable to unentangle ourselves. So this unentanglement is more important than coming to that. Because when you want something, it appears as though it is outside you. It's not outside you or me. It is the core of our being. How do you connect to that core is what is important. That comes through this fundamental understanding of all limitation is on account of the upadhis, and the upadhis create an illusion of diversity and separateness. When those upadhis are not there, when the upadhis are removed, what is there is essentially that unity, that oneness. What is ekameva advitiyam, the kevala. The Patanjali Yoga Sutras do not talk about moksha or nirvana or liberation or those terms. The term used in the Yoga Sutras is Kaivalya. Kaivalya is that state of being Kevala. Kevala means one only and alone. So Kaivalya is that state of aloneness, which is also totality and completeness. So it is the term Kevala is used here, and the term Rishikesha is used. It's not that somehow somebody has simply written these verses without understanding. There's a deep understanding, and when they are connected to it, the right kind of word also comes into the verse. So this and Jiddu Krishnamurti, clear distinction between loneliness and aloneness. Loneliness is isolation. Loneliness is depressive. Loneliness is what creates sorrow. But aloneness is immensity. Aloneness is oneness. Aloneness is the totality. So Kevala here represents that aloneness. Tannashe Kevalo Bhavayat. With the destruction of that, what remains is that oneness. There is no second to it. And as I said, the Patanjali Yoga Sutras use this term. There is an entire pada. The Patanjali Yoga Sutras is divided into 4 sections. And the last section is called Kaivalya Pada. He talks about that ultimate reality as Kaivalya, which is the state of being Kevala, which is the bhava of Kevala, is Kaivalya. That's what is meant here also when this particular term is used. So any further discussion, sir? Is there any, can we move to the next verse? Somebody can unmute themselves and say that, or if there is any question or there is any particular issue, then I would like to address that. Yeah.
Sir, you said Akasha, vastness.
Yes.
And can we say Bruhat?
Yeah, the term Bruhat is also used. The term Bruhat is used. The term Mahat is used. Bruh means vast. The term Bruh also means vast. Bruhat is called, that the Brahma comes from this term Bruhat. That infinitude, the vastness, the term that term also comes from the same root, Bruh, which is the term Bruhat is also used. You can definitely say that, no problem at all. But again, my request is do not get caught with the word. can we have a deep sense of that vastness? Can we in some way connect to that vastness is my issue.
Okay, sir. I got
So
it.
that is more important. The
Okay,
name and form are not important. Whether you call it as vastness or bruhat or mahat or something else is not
Akasha.
important.
Okay.
Akasha or anything that is not important.
Okay.
The connect to it is more important. Am I in any way able to sense that vastness? That is what is important. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Nice explanation.
Right. Any further this thing, sir? I would like to ask Umesh ji. Is it okay or
Yes, yes, sir.
can we proceed further?
Yes, please. Only
Vijay Lakshmi ji or
only observation is that vastness or the space is not a space unless there is an object existing. So
yeah, for
it is
our
the
mind,
object that defines the space.
Yeah, for us at the lower level.
Yes, at this point of time. Yes.
Right. That is true. So I'm just
Sir,
asking.
Vijay Lakshmi, sir.
Yeah, please tell me, madam.
Sir, all these words actually, they keep, appearing in Lalita Sahasranamam.
Yeah.
And, I always read it like as if it's just the 1,000 names of the goddess. But I think now that you're giving all these names, Vyakta, Avyakta, and Kaivalya, and all these words are appearing there also.
Yes. Yeah, they appear there and they have to be understood in this sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Devi is a vast energy center. The Devi is a vast repository of energy, and we are tapping into that energy through recitation of those 1,000 names. When you are tapping into that energy, if you are tapping it with understanding, if you are connecting to those names with the deeper understanding of those names and the words, you will be able to get a much higher benefit, or you can derive greater element of that energy into oneself. That is the basic idea. Why it is doing it unconsciously or mechanically, or learning the what we call as the Sahasranamas by heart and repeating them has at one level it will give you a certain minimum level of benefit. Invariably it will give you a minimum level of benefit that can be derived. But if you want to derive greater and greater benefit out of it, one should consciously go into these names and what exactly do they represent. Because see all these stotranamas are basically mantras. Mantra, the term itself comes from manana, manas. So you have to contemplate on them. Mantra also means an advice or a suggestion or a pointer or an indicator. One who gives mantra is called as a mantri. The term mantri also comes from this term mantra. Mantra is you want an advice or you want a suggestion. So these mantras are suggestive indicators to get connected to that vast repository of energy. The greater your understanding of it, the greater will be the connect, and thereby one can draw a greater amount of that positive energy into oneself, and through that spread it all over the world. Spread it across wherever we are, we can spread that. Okay, madam. Vijay Lakshmi ji, is that fine?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thank you.
Any further discussion, or shall we go to the next one? Okay, I will then share the next verse also. Hopefully it's an easier verse and a continuation of this. the 11th verse, he is giving again another simile here, another beautiful simile for us to understand the descent of this principle of Atma into grosser levels. And it says, the 11th verse says, Nanopadhi Vashadeva Jati Varnashramadayah Atmanyaropitas Toye Rasavarnadi Bhedavat. Because of its association with different conditionings such as ideas as caste, color, and position, are superimposed upon the Atman as flavor, color, etc. are superimposed on water. This water is another beautiful symbol. One should be able to appreciate the symbol of water. One of the synonyms in Sanskrit is jiva. Water is called as toya, jala, ambuja, ambu, neera. There are several terms which are synonymous with this, with what we call as water. But there is a beautiful synonym which is jiva, the life-giving principle. All scientists, biologists, and scientists, whenever they want to discover any life, first they look to this element of water, whether water is present there or not. Our explorations on Mars or the moon or wherever it is, the scientists are fundamentally interested in finding out whether there is any source of water. If there is even a small quantity of water, that quantity of water is sufficient to give birth to unicellular creatures and very small microscopic microbial creatures come into existence because of water. And the other beauty of water is that it takes the shape of any container. The third beauty of water is that you can mix anything into it and it gets blended with the water. You put in some flavor in it, you put a few drops of lime in it, it gets dissolved into it. You put some color into it, it gets blended with that and gives out that color. So these are all the beautiful aspects of water. Water as a life-giving principle, water assuming the shape of any container, water as something which is always flowing and dynamic, and water which blends with anything that is put into it, dissolves into it. You add salt or sugar or any other powder, well, mostly dissolvable powders. There could be some undissolvable powders which will only go as a precipitate. But all these aspects of dissolving elements which give flavor, which give color, which give the shape of the container. You can condense the water and get into any shape you give, any shape you want. All these aspects are there to water, and water is used as a beautiful symbol here. And it says that the Atma, on account of its association with the upadhis, with the various upadhis, nana upadhi vashat, what happens? Jati, varna, ashrama, etc. All these things come. This is one aspect which we need to very carefully understand. What is jati, varna, and ashrama? Let us not go by only the traditional meaning of it. The traditional meaning of it is birth, the caste or community, and the position you hold in society. But that's not important here. Jati means your very birth. Birth gives rise to an upadhi, isn't it? The birth of any body gives rise to an upadhi, which is a limiting agent. The embodied being comes with a certain amount of operating system and software fed into it, like a new computer. Even if you have a new computer, essentially it has an operating system. Then you add a lot of software to it. Otherwise it's not useful. If there were to be no operating system, no computer would be working. The operating system, whether it is an Android or Apple or something else, that operating system has to be there. And that operating system, merely having the operating system is also not enough. You have to have a lot of other software to use it. You have to have, say, something like Microsoft Office, or if it's an Apple, this thing, you have the corresponding Apple software available for that. Without the software, you can't use it. So the software part of it, the operating system part of it is the coloring, is the varna. The varna defines one's nature. Whether you are sattvic, whether you are rajasic, or whether you are tamasic. What are your samskaras? What are your vasanas? What are your propensities? What are your predilections? What are all the factors with which you come into being? That is the varna. Ashrama is the environment that is created to you. Whether you are in the environment, whether you are a child, whether you are an adolescent, whether you are a youth, whether you are a middle-aged person or an old-aged person. And what is the activity you carry out in different stages of your life defines the ashrama. That's how it has to be understood, whether it is brahmacharya or grihastha or vanaprastha or sannyasa. This ashrama defines the activity one carries on with the varna with which he is associated and with the situation given in life to him. At a particular point of time, what am I supposed to do or what I am doing actually? So this is the jati, varna, ashrama aspect of it. This has unfortunately got crystallized. Yes, please. Somebody.
टॉयज देखो इधर टॉयज देखो कितने हैं टॉयज.
Some participant has unmuted himself and there is some background disturbance. Have they muted themselves? Okay, thank you so much. What I'm trying to say is, do we see the nature of this? We have unfortunately over a long period of time as a social compulsion or as a social exploitation, we have crystallized birth, caste, community and social and financial status as defining a person. They do not define a person. They absolutely do not define a person in any way. If at all any definition is there, which is very, very, very limited and exploitative and destructive in nature. So just as these upadhis have created this different conditionings of jati, varna and ashrama, in the case of this atma also, these are all superimpositions like flavor and color are superimposed or blended with water. Rasa and varna. Varna means color. Color therefore represents the guna also. Varna and guna are also associated. Therefore, generally sattvic Sattvika guna is associated with white color. Rajasic is associated with red color. And tamasic is associated with black color. So the varna, the color, and the guna also have an association. But these are all superimpositions on the Atma, which is essentially pure. And the beautiful simile or example or illustration given here is that of water. Toye rasavarnadi bhedavat. Just as in water, you make a distinction based on the taste or the flavor added to that water or the color added to that water. Essentially, it is water. The addition of any flavor or color is in a way a superimposition to make the distinction. So just as water is distinguished based on the flavors and colors and other things added to it, the Atma also appears to be several or varied or diverse on account of the upadhis such as jati, varna and ashrama. That's the basic idea. One needs to be very clear that the Atman essentially is beyond all these things. Nothing attaches to it. The Atman, when it is acting through the upadhis, is stuck in limitation and therefore ignorance, and therefore identifies itself with its upadhis, such as one's own birth, one's own mental colorings, and one's own association with the station in life, the situation in life, both biologically and psychologically. Biologically, there is a particular aspect when you are young, and there is also a psychological aspect associated. As you progress in age, the biological dimension of it also changes and the psychological dimension also changes. That is the ashrama dharma. That's how the ashrama dharma operates. One can be a sannyasa in youth itself. One can be a sannyasi in youth itself because the biological age and the psychological age need not necessarily match. Generally, for the vast majority of human beings, because they go very closely and hand in hand, these ashramas appear to be classified as separate, and some foolish idea is incorporated in our minds that first 25 years is brahmacharya, next 25 years is grihastha, then next 25 years is vanaprastha, and then the final 25 years, if you survive beyond 75, is sannyasa. That's a very foolish classification where you are correlating age and the biological age and the psychological age. The biological age and the psychological age need not necessarily match at all. One can have a very deep spiritual orientation when one is young. And that is what Adi Shankara represents. And Adi Shankara says that also. That nothing matters to you. All these things are illusion. The earlier you see, the better it is for you. Because the purpose of life will be lost if you are stuck in this biological and psychological age. So a beautiful simile of water is given here. And as I said, just for the sake of recapitulation, water is called as Jiva or life itself. And water has some very unique properties and capabilities, as one would say, or inherent qualities of assuming the shape of the container and the fluidity of it, the ability to blend different tastes and colors within it, which make it appear as though it is different or very diverse, but essentially just as it is water, essentially a human being is an Atman who is stuck in these upadhis and appears different under different conditionings of birth, mental coloring, and the station in one's life. This is what is important, and this aspect is brought out very beautifully in this particular verse. So we can, I'll stop sharing it here and take up if there are any points. There is one chat here.
No, I don't. I just. But there's something that I'd like to add. Can you hear me clearly, Krishnaphani?
Yeah, I'm able to hear you.
Okay, so there's something I'd like to add, which comes from the Chinese Tao Te Ching, where they talk about the qualities of water. So in addition to whatever you mentioned, which is that it's completely adjustable, it takes the shape of the container, it's life-giving and everything else. The other things that they mentioned was that it always seeks lower ground. So it's always very humble water. Yeah. And the other thing also, which was very interesting, and they mentioned was that even if there are rocks or anything in the way, it will slowly wear it down. Yes. Slowly. And the other thing is that it always finally reaches its goal.
Yeah.
To the ocean. So, it's got that persistence, it's got that strength, it's got everything, So the whole point was that we should try to actually emulate some of these qualities ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Nice points to be added to this. In fact, I think yesterday I received we have a group amongst the engineering background with people with that. There's a beautiful video which shows that with enough pressure, water can cut any kind of steel. At almost 90,000 pounds per square inch, they actually cut a thick iron this thing very neatly, very beautifully. Water is cutting it. So as you said, erosion happens through the continuous flowing of water, and some of the rocks become rounded, some of them become very smooth, and some of them get eroded in dimension also. So with that persistence and flowing, it has that beautiful quality. Water is a great element, and any disturbance in any element can cause havoc. There's one thing we have to see in nature. Yes, Manjula ji, yeah.
Hello?
Yeah, please tell me.
It's a dynamic energy. Water.
Yeah, obviously, it is flowing. It is flowing always. It is fluid. Therefore, it is not something concrete and crystallized. It has that dynamism in it. It has that sense, that quality of flowing. Yes, please. And there is some chat here. Sunita Mirchandani, just beautiful analogy. Yeah. What Bina ji has added to it is something very good, and thank you, Bina ji, for that. Any further questions from the participants? Dr. Sana, do you have anything to add or observation? Or anybody else also, if they have anything, we can discuss it, or we can close it if it's okay. So I find no further chat. Ramesh Putana ji says thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Ramachandran ji has posted something. Sapanji says, how to see the video recordings of your past sessions, which I missed and likely to always revisit. Binaji, can we help?
I just answered that. Sapanji, yes. We are not able to record. We are having some problems with the technology and with Cisco right now. But as soon as the problem is fixed, we'll start uploading the future recordings.
I think
this session we will be uploading.
Yes.
Yeah, this
Now we
session
have
is being
sorted out the
recorded.
problem
Yeah.
with Cisco, so we will be uploading this.
So from this particular session onwards, we'll be uploading, Sapanji.
Yeah. So of this particular thing, other School of Ancient Wisdom talks earlier have been recorded and they are being uploaded. I think though they are available. This particular session is being recorded now, and it will be uploaded. Sapanji. Ramchandranji says understanding of upadhis are separate from Atma initially, and oneness finally keeps coming in. Yeah, one has to understand the nature of these upadhis as the limiting adjuncts which cause this diversity and this limitation. Okay. Thank you, Sapanji.
I
Thank you.
remembered one point.
Yeah.
James 3:11 says, how can fresh water and salt water or foul water come from the same spout?
Okay.
That is, he's talking about the way we speak.
Yes.
So you should be always be kind and accommodative than foul and harsh. Another example of water. How can both come from the same source?
Yeah, because of the contradiction in us, because of that contradiction in us and these items, these aspects of attraction and repulsion, when you are in repulsion, something foul comes out of it. When you are in attraction, something good comes out of it. So the coloring of that water is done by our mind. The water itself is pure, but the contamination or the pollution of water is done by the mind, which is a corrupting element, because of its limitation and acting in a very partial and fragmented manner. Thank you, Janaki Ramji.
The salt is a upadhi, right?
Yeah, salt is also an upadhi. Salt is also a conditioning factor.
Yeah, it's conditioning.
The color or the taste. See, instead of adding something sweet, you can add something bitter also to water. Right. Isn't it? So the water has that flexibility. It will accept anything and give out what you want.
Right.
You wanted it to be bitter, it will give you something bitter. You want it to be sweet, it will give you something sweet. Okay. So thank you so much.
Excuse me.
Yes, please.
Upload this.
Yes, we will.
Sujaya ji.
Can I make a point?
Yeah, this particular talk will be uploaded because now it is being recorded.
Where do you upload?
You can go to the School of Ancient Wisdom site, and there will be a link to it. And when you click it, you go to that YouTube thing. And I think if you are in their WhatsApp group, in the School of Ancient Wisdom WhatsApp group, you will get the link there also.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, am I right, Ravi ji?
Right, sir. You're right.
Right. Okay. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Krishnapani ji, as usual. And Sajini is here. Sajini will announce the forthcoming programs and also do the closing and thank Krishnapani ji. Sajini.
Mr. Krishnapani ji, as you were talking, I thought maybe we can do Kaivalya Upanishad after this because of what you were probably we can do that. But thank you so much for being with us week after week. And really, now all the programs, we have programs on Thursday. On Friday, we have the Bhagavad Gita. Saturday, we have Mr. Krishnapani. No, we have Spiritual Quest. And Sunday, we have Mr. Krishnapani. So, being with us. And all the...
Sajni ji.
Yes.
Sajni ji, before you do the Loka Samasta, Sunita Mirchandani ji wanted the fruits from the Garden of Wisdom. That is Swami-Krishnananda.org. Maybe if it's possible, I'll post it in the WhatsApp the link or the website, you can go to that chapter number 10, if I remember it right. He talks about Asti, Bhati and Priyam in that. I think some of the other participants might have accessed it. They can also share it. I'll also share the link. Okay, Sunita ji.
You can put it on
Thank you.
our
Yeah, WhatsApp group, I can do it.
Yes, please.
I'll do that. Okay. Sajniti, you can proceed with the Loka Samasta.
Right, we will have the Loka Samasta now and send love and energy to everyone. And before that, we are going through the Navratris. So a very happy Navratri to Goddess really bless all of us. So let's do the Loka Samasta. Everyone, please do it along with me and send out a lot of love. Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Loka Samasta Sukhino Loka Samasta Sukhino Om Shanti Shanti Hari Om Gurubhyo Namah Hari Om Shri Krishna. Thank you, everyone. And see you on